The handcuffs clicked shut around Marcus Thompson's wrists with a sound that seemed to echo through the crowded bar. The metal felt cold against his skin as he stood there, surrounded by angry faces and pointing fingers. Just 20 minutes earlier, he had been buying drinks for a group of college students, sharing stories that had made them lean in closer with wide eyes and open mouths. Now, those same students stood behind the police officers, their faces twisted with disgust and betrayal. One of them, a young woman with blonde hair, shook her head as she spoke to the detective. "He told us he was a Navy SEAL," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "He said he served 3 tours in Afghanistan. We bought him drinks all night because we thought he was a hero." Detective Sarah Williams nodded as she took notes. She had seen this before. Men who pretended to be military heroes to impress people, especially young college students who didn't know enough to ask the right questions. It was disgusting, but it happened more often than people realized. Marcus said nothing as they led him toward the police car. His brown hair was messy and his beard needed trimming. He wore a simple black t-shirt and jeans, nothing fancy. There were no military patches or obvious signs that he was trying to look like a soldier. That made Detective Williams curious. Usually, the fake military guys went all out with the costume. The bar owner, a heavy man named Pete, followed them outside. "I've seen that guy in here 3 or 4 times, he told the detective. "Always tells the same stories. Says he was in some special operations unit. Kids eat it up every time." Detective Williams looked back at Marcus. He wasn't fighting the arrest or making excuses. Most of the fake military guys she arrested either got angry and defensive or started crying and apologizing immediately. This guy just walked quietly to the car, his face showing no emotion at all. The drive to the police station was silent. Marcus stared out the window at the city lights flashing by. Detective Williams watched him in the rearview mirror. Something about this case felt different, but she couldn't put her finger on what it was. At the station, they processed him like any other arrest. Fingerprints, photos, personal belongings in a plastic bag. Marcus Thompson, age 32, address on Maple Street in a rundown part of town. No military ID in his wallet, no veteran's card, nothing that would suggest he had ever served in any branch of the military. Detective Williams sat across from him in the small interview room. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the gray walls. Marcus sat with his hands folded on the metal table, still saying nothing. "So," Detective Williams began, opening her notebook, "you want to tell me what happened tonight?" Marcus looked at her but didn't answer. His eyes were dark brown, almost black in the harsh light. There was something in those eyes that made the detective pause. She had interviewed hundreds of criminals over her 15-year career. She could usually read people pretty well. This guy didn't look like someone who was lying. He looked tired and sad, but not guilty. "Look, Marcus," she said, trying a softer approach. "I've got 4 witnesses who say you told them you were a Navy SEAL. That's stolen valor, and it's a federal crime. You could be looking at some serious jail time." Still nothing. Marcus just stared at his hands. Detective Williams tried again. "Why don't you tell me your story? Maybe there's something I'm missing here." Finally, Marcus spoke. His voice was quiet and rough, like he hadn't used it in a while. "What do you want to know?" "Let's start simple. Have you ever served in the military?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Yes." Detective Williams raised an eyebrow. "What branch?" "Navy." "When?" 2008 to 2015. Detective Williams wrote this down, but she was skeptical. If he really had served, where was his military ID? Where were his records? "What was your rate?" "Special Warfare Operator." Detective Williams stopped writing. Special Warfare Operator was the official name for Navy SEALs. If this guy was telling the truth, then something very strange was going on. "You're saying you were actually a SEAL?" Marcus nodded. "Then why don't you have any military ID? Why isn't there anything in your wallet to prove it?" Marcus looked up at her for the first time. Because I'm not supposed to exist anymore. The detective felt a chill run down her spine. What do you mean by that? Before Marcus could answer, there was a knock on the interview room door. Detective Williams got up, annoyed at the interruption. She opened the door to find Sergeant Rodriguez waiting outside. What is it? She asked. We ran his fingerprints through the system, Rodriguez said, looking confused. You need to see this. Detective Williams followed him to his computer. On the screen was Marcus Thompson's file, but it looked like nothing she had ever seen before. Most of the information was blacked out, with only his name and basic physical description visible. At the top of the file, in red letters, were the words, Classified, Contact, Naval Special Warfare, Command Immediately. What the hell? Detective Williams muttered. There's more, Rodriguez said. I called the number on the file. They're sending someone over right now. Detective Williams felt her stomach drop. In all her years as a police officer, she had never seen a file like this. If Marcus Thompson was really a fake, why would his arrest trigger a response from Naval Special Warfare Command? She went back to the interview room, her mind racing. Marcus was still sitting in the same position, staring at his hands. Marcus, she said as she sat down, I just ran your prints. Your file is classified. What aren't you telling me? Marcus looked up at her again. For a moment, she thought she saw pain in his eyes. Real, deep pain. I told you, he said quietly. I'm not supposed to exist anymore. Before Detective Williams could ask another question, Sergeant Rodriguez appeared at the door again. Detective, they're here. Two men in dark suits walked into the police station. They moved with the kind of confidence that came from having serious authority. The older one, a man in his 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes, approached Detective Williams. Detective Williams? I'm Agent Carter, Naval Criminal Investigative Service. This is Agent Brooks. We understand you have Marcus Thompson in custody. Detective Williams nodded, still trying to process what was happening. Yes, he was arrested for stolen valor, but his file is classified, Agent Carter finished. We need to speak with him immediately. I don't understand, Detective Williams said. If he's really military, why was he arrested for pretending to be military? Agent Carter's expression didn't change. It's complicated. Can we see him now? Detective Williams led them to the interview room. When they opened the door, Marcus looked up and his entire body tensed. He recognized the agents, and they clearly recognized him. Hello, Marcus, Agent Carter said as he sat down across from him. It's been a while. Marcus's jaw tightened. What are you doing here? You know why we're here. You broke the agreement. Detective Williams looked back and forth between them. What agreement? What's going on here? Agent Carter turned to her. Detective, I'm going to need you to step outside for a moment. Like hell, Detective Williams said. This is my case, my arrest. I'm not going anywhere until someone explains what's happening. Agent Brooks spoke for the first time. Detective, this is a matter of national security. You don't have clearance for this information. Then maybe you should have thought about that before your guy went around pretending to be a war hero, Detective Williams shot back. Agent Carter held up a hand. Actually, Detective, Marcus never pretended to be anything. He is exactly what he told those college students he was. Detective Williams felt like the ground was shifting under her feet. But then why? Why was he arrested? Agent Carter finished. Because Marcus Thompson isn't supposed to be talking to anyone about his military service. Ever. Marcus spoke up, his voice angry now. I didn't tell them anything classified. I just told some stories about basic training and deployments. Nothing they couldn't read in a book. Any stories, Marcus? Agent Carter said firmly. The agreement was no stories, no military talk, no acknowledgement of your service. You were supposed to disappear. Detective Williams couldn't take it anymore. Will someone please explain what the hell is going on here? Agent Carter looked at Agent Brooks, who nodded slightly. Carter turned back to Detective Williams. Detective, Marcus Thompson was a Navy SEAL for 7 years. He served on a classified team that conducted operations I can't tell you about in places I can't name. 3 years ago, his team was compromised during a mission. Most of his teammates were killed. Detective Williams felt her anger fading, replaced by confusion and sympathy. I'm sorry to hear that, but I still don't understand. Marcus survived, Agent Carter continued. But his survival put ongoing operations at risk. Enemy forces were looking for him. To protect those operations and to protect Marcus, we had to make him disappear. Officially, Marcus Thompson died in that mission along with the rest of his team. The room was silent for a moment as Detective Williams processed this information. She looked at Marcus, who was staring at the table again. So he's supposed to be dead? As far as the world knows, yes. We gave him a new identity, relocated him, and he agreed never to discuss his military service with anyone. Detective Williams felt a mix of emotions, anger, confusion, and sadness for Marcus. So when those kids bought him drinks and thanked him for his service, he was supposed to just lie? Yes, Agent Carter said simply. That's not right, Detective Williams said. She looked at Marcus. How long have you been living like this? Marcus finally looked up. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. The pain in his voice was unmistakable. Detective Williams had dealt with enough veterans to recognize trauma when she saw it. This man wasn't a criminal. He was a hero who had been forced to deny his own heroism. What happens now? She asked Agent Carter. That depends on Marcus, Carter said. The agreement still stands. If he can promise to maintain his cover, we can let this slide. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. What if I can't promise that? Agent Carter's expression hardened. Then we'll have to take other measures to protect the operations you're putting at risk. Detective Williams didn't like the sound of that. What kind of other measures? Before Agent Carter could answer, there was another knock on the door. This time, it was the desk sergeant, and he looked nervous. Detective Williams, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. Not now, Sergeant. We're in the middle of something. Ma'am, he says he's Admiral Richardson from Naval Special Warfare Command. He flew here from Virginia. Agent Carter and Agent Brooks exchanged looks. Agent Carter seemed surprised and maybe a little worried. Admiral Richardson is here? Carter asked. The sergeant nodded. He's in the chief's office. Says he needs to see the suspect immediately. Agent Carter stood up quickly. Detective, we need to move Marcus to a more secure location. Why? Detective Williams asked. Because Admiral Richardson wasn't supposed to know about any of this. Before anyone could move, the door to the interview room opened. A tall man in a Navy uniform walked in, followed by the police chief, who looked completely out of his depth. The man was clearly an admiral. His uniform displayed the 4 stars that marked his rank. He was older, probably in his early 60s, with white hair and the kind of bearing that came from decades of command. When he walked into the room, everyone automatically straightened up. Agent Carter, the admiral said, his voice carrying the authority of his rank. What exactly is going on here? Agent Carter seemed to struggle for words. Sir, this is a classified operation. Marcus Thompson is under our protection. Admiral Richardson looked around the room, his eyes taking in the scene. When his gaze fell on Marcus, something changed in his expression. Stand up, son, the admiral said gently. Marcus stood up slowly. He was tall, probably 6 feet 2 inches, with broad shoulders and the kind of build that came from years of military training. As he stood, the admiral's eyes moved over him, taking in details that the others had missed. Then the admiral's gaze stopped on Marcus's left forearm. Detective Williams followed his look and saw what had caught his attention. There was a tattoo there, partially hidden by Marcus's sleeve. It wasn't large, and from her angle she couldn't make out what it was. Admiral Richardson stepped closer to Marcus. "Roll up your sleeve," he said quietly. Marcus hesitated, looking at Agent Carter. Carter shook his head slightly, but the Admiral noticed. "That wasn't a request, son," Admiral Richardson said, his voice still gentle but with unmistakable authority. Marcus rolled up his left sleeve, revealing his forearm completely. The tattoo was now visible to everyone in the room. It was a simple design, a trident surrounded by an eagle and anchor, with numbers beneath it that Detective Williams couldn't read from her position. But Admiral Richardson could read them. His face went pale, and he took a step back. "Jesus Christ," he whispered, so quietly that Detective Williams almost missed it. Then he looked up at Marcus with an expression of shock and recognition. "What's your real name, son?" the Admiral asked. Marcus looked at Agent Carter again, but this time he didn't wait for permission. "James Michael Rodriguez, sir." Admiral Richardson closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, he looked at Agent Carter with an expression of barely controlled anger. "Agent Carter, you are relieved of this case. Agent Brooks, you're both to report to my office in Norfolk at 0800 hours tomorrow." "Sir," Agent Carter protested, "this is a matter of national security." "You're damn right it is," Admiral Richardson said, his voice rising for the first time. "And you've been lying about it for 3 years. He turned to Detective Williams. "Detective, I need you to release Mr. Rodriguez immediately. All charges are to be dropped." Detective Williams was completely lost now. "Sir, I don't understand what's happening here." Admiral Richardson looked at her and his expression softened. "Detective, this man isn't an imposter. He's exactly what he told those college students he was. But more than that..." He paused and looked at Marcus again. "He's someone I've been looking for a very long time." The room fell silent. Detective Williams could hear the clock on the wall ticking, marking the seconds as everyone tried to process what was happening. Finally, she found her voice. "Sir, these agents told me that Marcus, that James, was supposed to be dead, that he was living under a false identity for his own protection." Admiral Richardson's face darkened. "Detective, these agents have been lying to you. And they've been lying to James for 3 years. He turned to look at Marcus again. "Son, do you know who I am?" Marcus shook his head. "No, sir. I'm Admiral Richardson, but 3 years ago, I was Captain Richardson, commanding officer of DevGru Team 6. Your team." The words hit the room like a bomb. Detective Williams felt her knees go weak. She had to grab the back of a chair to steady herself. Marcus stared at the Admiral, his mouth slightly open. "Sir, my commanding officer died in the mission. Agent Carter told me..." "Agent Carter told you a lot of things that weren't true," Admiral Richardson said. "Your commanding officer didn't die in that mission. I was wounded, evacuated, and spent 6 months in the hospital. When I got back, I was told that everyone on the team had been killed, including you." Marcus sat down heavily in his chair. Detective Williams could see that he was shaking. "But, sir," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper, "if you're alive, then why did they tell me you were dead? Why did they make me disappear?" Admiral Richardson's expression grew grim. "Son, I think we've all been played, and I think it's time we found out by who." Admiral Richardson turned to Detective Williams with the kind of authority that made even seasoned police officers pay attention. "Detective, I need to speak with James privately. This is a matter of national security, but not in the way these agents claimed." Detective Williams nodded and started to leave, but then stopped. "Admiral, with respect, this is still my case. Whatever happened to this man, he was arrested in my city, in my jurisdiction. I think I have a right to know what's really going on." The Admiral studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You're right, Detective. You've been dragged into something that should never have involved civilian law enforcement. He looked at Agent Carter, who was standing near the door with his partner. "However, I need these gentlemen to leave immediately." "Sir?" Agent Carter protested. "We have orders." "From whom?" Admiral Richardson's voice cut through the room like ice. "Because as of right now, I'm taking command of this situation. Unless you have orders directly from the Secretary of the Navy or higher, you're dismissed." Agent Carter and Agent Brooks exchanged glances. It was clear they hadn't expected to face a real admiral, especially not one who seemed to know more about the situation than they did. "We'll be in touch," Agent Carter said as he headed for the door. "Count on it," Admiral Richardson replied coldly. After the agents left, the Admiral sat down across from Marcus. Detective Williams remained standing, still trying to process everything she had witnessed. "James," the Admiral said gently, "I need you to tell me everything that happened after the mission. Everything these agents told you, everything they made you do. Can you do that for me?" Marcus looked up at his former commanding officer. 3 years of pain and confusion were written across his face. "Sir, they told me everyone was dead. They said you, Rodriguez, Patterson, all of them. They said I was the only survivor and that enemy forces were hunting for me." "Go on," Admiral Richardson said. "They kept me in a medical facility for 3 months. Said I had injuries that needed special treatment. I couldn't contact anyone, couldn't call my family. They said it was for security reasons." Marcus's voice grew stronger as he talked. "When I finally got better, Agent Carter came to see me. He said the mission had been compromised, that there was a leak in command, and that they needed to hide me until they could figure out who was responsible." Detective Williams found herself leaning forward, caught up in the story despite herself. "They gave me the new identity," Marcus continued. "Marcus Thompson. New social security number, new address, money in a bank account. Carter said it was temporary. Maybe 6 months until they caught whoever had leaked our mission details." "And you believed them?" Admiral Richardson asked, but his tone wasn't accusatory. It was understanding. "Sir, I had just watched my entire team die. I was confused, hurt, and these were government agents telling me this was the only way to stay alive. Yes, I believed them." Admiral Richardson nodded. "Of course you did. You were a good soldier following what you thought were orders." He paused. "James, I need to tell you something that's going to be hard to hear." Marcus tensed. "Sir, there was no leak in command. The mission wasn't compromised by intelligence failures. Your team walked into an ambush, yes, but not because someone betrayed you." Detective Williams saw Marcus's hands clench into fists. "Then why did they die?" "Because Agent Carter and his people sent your team into a situation they knew was dangerous, without proper intelligence or backup support." Admiral Richardson's voice was filled with controlled anger. "They were running their own operation, something off the books, and they used your team as expendable assets." The room went silent. Detective Williams felt sick. She had seen corruption in her years as a police officer, but nothing like this. Marcus stood up abruptly, his chair scraping across the floor. "Are you telling me that my brothers died because some CIA agents wanted to play soldier?" "Not CIA," Admiral Richardson said quietly. "Worse, private contractors working for interests that had nothing to do with national security." "What kind of interests?" Detective Williams asked. Admiral Richardson looked at her. "The kind that make billions of dollars from military contracts and need ongoing conflicts to justify their existence." Marcus started pacing the small room like a caged animal. "They killed my team to start a war?" "Not to start one," Admiral Richardson said. "To make sure an existing one didn't end too quickly." Detective Williams felt like she was in a movie. This couldn't be real. "Admiral, are you saying that American agents sacrificed American soldiers for money?" "Detective, I'm saying that's exactly what happened. And when James survived, he became a liability. He was a witness to what really happened on that mission." Marcus stopped pacing and turned to face the Admiral. So why didn't they just kill me? Because killing a Medal of Honor recipient would raise too many questions. Detective Williams's eyes widened. You have a Medal of Honor? Marcus looked embarrassed. It was classified, for actions during a previous mission. Admiral Richardson nodded. James received the highest military honor this country can give for saving the lives of an entire village in Afghanistan. The mission was so sensitive that the award was classified, but it's in his permanent record. So they couldn't kill me, Marcus said, understanding dawning in his voice. But they couldn't let me talk either. Exactly. So they created the perfect prison. They convinced you that talking about your service would put you and others in danger? They made you police yourself? Detective Williams shook her head in amazement. That's diabolical. It's worse than that, Admiral Richardson said. For 3 years, this man has been living in isolation, cut off from his family, his friends, his identity. All while the people responsible for his team's death got promoted and received commendations for their successful operation. Marcus sat down again, his head in his hands. My family thinks I'm dead. Your parents held a funeral for you, Admiral Richardson said gently. I attended it. So did the families of your teammates. We mourned you as a hero. Detective Williams felt tears in her eyes. She couldn't imagine the pain this man had endured. Sir, Marcus said, looking up at the Admiral, how did you find me? Admiral Richardson smiled for the first time since entering the room. I never stopped looking. Something about the official report didn't add up. Too many details were classified or redacted. When I was promoted and got higher security clearance, I started digging. What did you find? I found that the mission your team was sent on officially didn't exist. There were no records of the operation in any Pentagon database. But I also found that certain private military contractors had been paid substantial sums around the same time your team disappeared. Detective Williams was fascinated despite herself. How did that lead you to Marcus? It didn't, not directly. But 6 months ago, I got a break. One of the contractors involved in the original operation was arrested for selling weapons to foreign buyers. When he was facing life in prison, he started talking. Marcus looked up sharply. What did he say? He told us that there had been a survivor from the SEAL team operation. He didn't know where you were, but he confirmed that you were alive and that certain government agents had hidden you. So you started looking for me? Admiral Richardson nodded. We put out alerts to police departments around the country. We figured that eventually you might do exactly what you did tonight. Tell someone about your military service. Most stolen valor cases are exactly that, but we hoped that one might be different. And when I was arrested, your fingerprints hit our system immediately. I was on a plane within 2 hours. Detective Williams had been quiet during this exchange, but now she spoke up. Admiral, what happens now? If these agents have been covering this up for 3 years, they're not going to just give up. Admiral Richardson's expression grew serious. Detective, you're absolutely right. Which is why James is in immediate danger, and frankly, so are you. What do you mean? Marcus asked. Agent Carter and his people have spent 3 years making sure this secret stayed buried. Now that I know the truth, and now that you know the truth, we're all threats to them. Detective Williams felt a chill run down her spine. Are you saying they might try to hurt us? I'm saying that these people have already killed an entire SEAL team to protect their interests. I don't think they'll hesitate to kill a few more people if necessary. The room fell silent as the implications of this statement sank in. Finally, Marcus spoke. Sir, what do we do? Admiral Richardson stood up. First, we get you both out of here. This police station isn't secure. And I guarantee Carter has people watching it. Where can we go? Detective Williams asked. I have a safe house about an hour from here. We'll go there while I contact people I trust in Washington. Marcus stood up as well. Sir, I just want to know one thing. What's that, son? Is there any chance that the other members of my team survived? Is there any possibility that Carter lied about that too? Admiral Richardson's face grew sad. James, I'm sorry. I've seen the bodies of your teammates. They're really gone. Marcus nodded, but Detective Williams could see the pain in his eyes. However, Admiral Richardson continued, there is something else you should know. What? Rodriguez had a brother, Miguel, who was also a SEAL. He's been looking for answers about his brother's death. He's going to want to meet you. Marcus's eyes widened. Miguel's alive? Very much so. And when he finds out what really happened to his brother, Agent Carter and his people are going to have bigger problems than just covering up their crimes. Detective Williams was putting on her jacket. Admiral, I need to call my captain and let him know what's happening. Detective, I appreciate your dedication, but the fewer people who know about this right now, the better. These corruption tentacles reach into many government agencies. So, what do I tell my captain about why I'm leaving in the middle of a case? Tell him you're assisting in a federal investigation and that you'll be back in a few days. As they prepared to leave the police station, Marcus turned to Detective Williams. Detective, I'm sorry you got dragged into this. She looked at him and saw a man who had sacrificed everything for his country and had been betrayed by the very government he served. Don't apologize. I became a police officer to protect people and find the truth. That's exactly what we're doing. Admiral Richardson looked at both of them. Before we leave, there's something else you both need to know. What? They said in unison. The mission that got James's team killed? It wasn't the first one. We believe Carter and his people have been responsible for the deaths of at least 3 other special operations teams over the past 5 years. Detective Williams felt her stomach drop. How many people are we talking about? 43 American soldiers and Marines, all killed in operations that officially never existed. Marcus's face had gone pale. They've been doing this for 5 years? At least. And every time, they eliminated any witnesses and covered their tracks perfectly. Admiral Richardson looked directly at Marcus. Until now, you're the first witness who survived and could potentially testify about what really happened. That's why they worked so hard to keep me quiet, Marcus said. Exactly. And that's why they're going to work very hard to make sure you never get the chance to tell your story. Detective Williams checked her gun, making sure it was loaded. Then we better make sure they don't succeed. Admiral Richardson smiled grimly. Detective, I have a feeling you're going to fit right in with this operation. As they walked toward the exit of the police station, Marcus suddenly stopped. Admiral, there's something I didn't tell you about Agent Carter. What? 3 months ago he came to visit me, said there might be new threats, and that I needed to be even more careful about who I talked to. Admiral Richardson frowned. Did he say what kind of threats? He said that enemy forces had captured some of our people during recent operations, and that they might have gotten information about surviving members of my team. Detective Williams looked at the Admiral. That was 3 months ago? About the time you said you started getting close to finding Marcus? Exactly 3 months ago, Admiral Richardson confirmed. Carter knew we were closing in. Which means he's been preparing for this moment, Marcus said. He's had 3 months to plan for what would happen if I was discovered. Admiral Richardson's expression grew very serious. Then we need to assume that everything we do from this point forward is expected. Carter has had time to prepare for multiple scenarios. So what do we do? Detective Williams asked. We do the one thing he won't expect, Admiral Richardson said. Which is? We go on the offensive. As they walked out of the police station into the cool night air, Detective Williams realized that her quiet Tuesday evening had turned into something much bigger and more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. But looking at Marcus, Seeing the hope in his eyes for the first time since she'd met him, she knew they were doing the right thing. The truth needed to come out, no matter what the cost. The safe house turned out to be a small cabin hidden in the woods about an hour outside the city. Admiral Richardson had driven them there in his rented SUV, taking a winding route that allowed him to check if they were being followed. The cabin was simple but comfortable, with thick walls and windows that were clearly bulletproof. "This belongs to a friend of mine," Admiral Richardson explained as he unlocked the door. "Someone I trust completely." Detective Williams looked around the cabin. It was obviously designed for security, not comfort. There were communication equipment, computers, and what looked like enough weapons to outfit a small army. "Your friend must be an interesting person," she said. Admiral Richardson smiled. "Miguel Rodriguez, James's teammate's brother. He's been using this place as a base while investigating his brother's death." Marcus looked up sharply. "Miguel's here?" "He will be. I called him while you were getting your things from the police station. He's driving up from Virginia right now." As if summoned by their conversation, the sound of a car engine could be heard approaching the cabin. Admiral Richardson looked out the window and nodded. "That's him." The man who walked through the door looked like he could have been Marcus's brother. Miguel Rodriguez was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself with the same confident bearing as most special operations veterans. But where Marcus looked tired and worn down by 3 years of isolation, Miguel radiated barely controlled anger. He stopped in the doorway when he saw Marcus, and for a moment, neither man moved. Then Miguel crossed the room in 3 quick steps and wrapped Marcus in a bear hug. "Jesus Christ, Jimmy," Miguel said, using what was apparently Marcus's nickname. "We thought you were dead." Marcus hugged him back, and Detective Williams could see tears in both men's eyes. "I thought you were dead, too. They told me everyone was gone." Miguel stepped back and looked at Marcus seriously. "Brother, we need to talk. I've learned some things about what happened to our teams that are going to make you very angry." Admiral Richardson gestured for everyone to sit down around a large wooden table. "Miguel, what have you found?" Miguel opened a laptop and pulled up several files. "Admiral, remember how we could never figure out why our intelligence about that mission was so wrong?" "Of course." "Well, it turns out the intelligence wasn't wrong, it was deliberately false." Detective Williams leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Miguel turned the laptop so they could all see the screen. It showed what appeared to be internal communications between various government agencies. "These are emails I managed to get from a contact at the Pentagon," Miguel explained. "They show that Agent Carter's group knew exactly what our teams would be walking into." Marcus stared at the screen. "They knew it was a trap?" "Not just knew about it, they set it up." Miguel clicked to another screen. "Look at this. 3 weeks before your mission, Carter's people met with local militia leaders in the area. They provided them with information about American operations in the region." Admiral Richardson's face had gone red with anger. "They gave intelligence to enemy forces?" "It gets worse," Miguel said. "They also provided weapons and communication equipment. Basically, they armed and informed the people who killed our brothers." Detective Williams felt sick. "Why would they do that?" Miguel pulled up another document. "Because they needed evidence of a successful enemy operation to justify a massive increase in military spending in the region. Congressional budget hearings were coming up, and there were proposals to reduce military presence in Afghanistan. So they got American soldiers killed to protect their funding?" Marcus asked, his voice barely controlled. 43 soldiers across 5 operations, Miguel confirmed. Each time, the aftermath resulted in increased military contracts for the companies Carter and his people were connected to. Admiral Richardson was quiet for a long moment, studying the documents on the screen. Finally, he spoke. "Miguel, this is incredible work. How did you get all this?" I've been working with a group of other family members who lost people in these classified operations, Miguel explained. We've been sharing information and resources for 2 years. How many people are in this group? Detective Williams asked. Families representing 31 of the 43 soldiers who were killed. We call ourselves the Truth Coalition. Marcus looked up. 31 families have been investigating this? Miguel nodded. And now that we have a survivor who can testify about what really happened, we can finally take this to the authorities. What authorities? Admiral Richardson asked. Carter and his people have connections throughout the government. I've been thinking about that, Miguel said. We need to go public. Media, Congress, wherever we can find honest people who will listen. Detective Williams had been thinking while the men talked. Actually, I might have an idea. Everyone turned to look at her. What kind of idea? Admiral Richardson asked. I have a contact at the FBI, someone I went through the police academy with who now works in their public corruption unit. If we can get this evidence to her, she might be able to start an official investigation. Miguel looked skeptical. Can we trust her? I trust her with my life, Detective Williams said firmly. Jennifer Chen is one of the most honest people I know. If anyone can handle this without it getting buried, it's her. Admiral Richardson considered this. It's risky. If we're wrong about her, then we're no worse off than we are now, Marcus said. At least this way we have a chance. Before anyone could respond, a phone rang. Miguel answered it, listened for a moment, then hung up with a grim expression. That was my contact at the Pentagon, he said. Agent Carter has been asking questions about who accessed those classified files. They know someone has been digging into the operations. How long do we have? Admiral Richardson asked. Maybe 12 hours before they figure out it was me. Detective Williams stood up. Then we need to move fast. I'm going to call Jennifer right now. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. After a few moments, someone answered. Jennifer, it's Sarah Williams. I need your help with something big. She paused, listening. No, I can't talk about it on the phone. Can you meet me somewhere secure? Another pause. How about that diner we used to go to after night shifts? The one on Route 47. She listened again. 2 hours? Perfect. Jennifer, this is probably the biggest case you'll ever work on. Trust me. She hung up and turned to the others. She'll meet me in 2 hours. Admiral Richardson looked concerned. Detective, if Carter's people are monitoring communications, Jennifer knows how to stay off the radar. If anyone can handle this safely, it's her. Miguel was already packing up his files. While you're meeting with your FBI contact, Jimmy and I are going to reach out to the Truth Coalition families. If we're going to expose this, we need to do it all at once. Make it impossible for them to silence everyone. Marcus nodded. What can I do to help? You can start by writing down everything you remember about the mission and everything Carter told you afterward. Every detail might be important. Admiral Richardson checked his watch. I'm going to contact some people I trust in Washington. If this goes public, we'll need allies in place. As they prepared to leave the cabin, Marcus stopped Detective Williams. Sarah, I want to thank you. For what? For believing me. For not just treating me like another fake soldier. Detective Williams looked at him seriously. Marcus, James, whatever name you want to go by. You served your country with honor. You lost your brothers in service to America. The very least you deserve is for someone to believe you when you tell your story. Marcus smiled for the first time since she'd met him. I'd like to go back to James if that's okay. Marcus Thompson was never really me anyway. James it is, she said. 2 hours later, Detective Williams sat across from FBI agent Jennifer Chen in a nearly empty diner. Jennifer was a small woman with short black hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She had always been the smartest person in any room, and her reputation at the bureau was outstanding. Sarah, Jennifer said after they'd ordered coffee, you sounded scared on the phone. That's not like you. I am scared, Detective Williams admitted. Jenny, what I'm about to tell you could get us both killed. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. Okay, now you have my full attention. Detective Williams took a deep breath and began telling the story. She started with Marcus's arrest and went through everything they had learned about the conspiracy. Jennifer listened without interrupting, taking notes on a small pad. When Detective Williams finished, Jennifer was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. Sarah, this is incredible. If even half of what you're telling me is true, we're talking about one of the biggest military scandals in American history. It's all true, Jenny. I've seen the evidence. Jennifer closed her notepad. Where are the witnesses now? Safe, but not for long. These people have already killed 43 soldiers. They won't hesitate to kill more. I need to see everything. The documents, the witness statements, all of it. Detective Williams nodded. I can arrange that, but Jenny, once you see this evidence, there's no going back. You'll be a target too. Jennifer smiled grimly. Sarah, I didn't join the FBI to investigate parking tickets. If there are corrupt government agents getting American soldiers killed for profit, then stopping them is exactly why I became a federal agent. They arranged to meet at a secure FBI facility the next morning. As they left the diner, Jennifer stopped her. Sarah, there's something you should know. About 6 months ago, the Bureau started receiving reports about irregularities in special operations missions. We've been quietly investigating, but we haven't had any solid evidence. Detective Williams felt a surge of hope. So the FBI already suspects something? Some of us do, but we've been blocked at every turn. Classified this, national security that. We haven't been able to make any real progress. Until now. Until now, Jennifer agreed. The next morning, James, Miguel, Admiral Richardson, and Detective Williams met Jennifer at a secure FBI building outside the city. For the next 6 hours, they went through every piece of evidence Miguel had collected and every detail of James's experience. Jennifer's team of investigators was thorough and professional. They verified documents, cross-referenced dates, and built a timeline of events that clearly showed the pattern of corruption. This is incredible work, Jennifer told Miguel. How did you manage to collect all this without being detected? Very carefully, Miguel replied, and with help from families who have nothing left to lose. By the end of the day, Jennifer was convinced. I'm going to take this to the director immediately. This is big enough that it needs to go straight to the top. 3 days later, the story broke nationwide. Major news networks led with reports of a massive conspiracy involving government contractors, corrupt agents, and the deliberate targeting of American Special Operations teams. Agent Carter and 17 other people were arrested simultaneously in raids across the country. The arrests included officials from the Pentagon, the CIA, and several private military contractors. James's story became the centerpiece of the investigation. His survival and testimony provided the crucial evidence needed to make the case against the conspirators. The trial lasted 8 months. James testified for 3 days, telling the country about the mission that killed his team and the 3 years he spent in hiding. His testimony was powerful and emotional, and it helped convict all 18 defendants. Agent Carter received life in prison without parole. The other conspirators received sentences ranging from 20 to 50 years. More importantly for James, the truth about his team's sacrifice finally came out. The Navy held a special ceremony honoring the fallen SEALs, and their families finally learned how their loved ones had really died. James's parents, who had thought their son was dead for 3 years, were reunited with him in an emotional ceremony at the Pentagon. The Navy also officially restored his identity and rank, erasing the false Marcus Thompson persona forever. Detective Williams received a commendation from the FBI for her role in breaking open the case. More importantly to her, she had helped a true hero get his life back. Miguel Rodriguez was promoted to Senior Chief Petty Officer and put in charge of a new Navy unit designed to investigate irregularities in special operations missions. Admiral Richardson was promoted to Commander of Naval Special Warfare Command, where he implemented new safeguards to prevent another conspiracy like Carter's from developing. 6 months after the trial ended, James stood at Arlington National Cemetery at a memorial service for his fallen teammates. For the first time in 4 years, he was wearing his dress uniform with all his decorations, including his Medal of Honor. Detective Williams stood beside him as they watched the honor guard present American flags to the families of the fallen SEALs. "Do you think they would be proud?" James asked quietly. Detective Williams looked at him. Over the past year, she had watched him transform from a broken man living in isolation to someone who had found peace with his past and purpose for his future. "James, I think they would be incredibly proud. You never stopped fighting for them, even when the whole world told you to stay quiet." James nodded, wiping tears from his eyes. "I'm going to make sure this never happens to anyone else." "What do you mean?" "I'm starting a foundation for families of special operations personnel who die in suspicious circumstances. We're going to make sure they get answers and justice." Detective Williams smiled. "That sounds perfect." As the ceremony ended and people began to leave, James remained at the memorial wall. He traced the names of his teammates with his finger, silently saying goodbye to the brothers he had carried with him for so long. Finally, he stepped back and saluted the wall. Then he turned and walked away, ready to begin the next chapter of his life. The truth had set him free, but more importantly, it had given meaning to his survival. James Rodriguez was no longer the man who had been forced to live as Marcus Thompson. He was a Navy SEAL who had kept faith with his fallen brothers and made sure their sacrifice was not forgotten. Detective Williams watched him go, knowing that sometimes the most important arrests are the ones that free the innocent rather than capture the guilty. In the distance, she could hear the sound of taps being played for the fallen heroes. But for the first time in 4 years, James Rodriguez could listen to that haunting melody, knowing that the truth about their deaths would live forever and that justice had finally been served.